James Lee Community Center, but we're really glad to have everyone join us. I am going to share my screen and run the presentation, and we will get started. We are recording this. We are going to be posting this to our website. If you would not like your camera to be shown, you have the option to turn it off. And if you have any questions, we'd ask that you hold them until the end. You can put questions in the chat. We will be moderating that. And we can also invite people to unmute when we get to the end for questions. All right, thank you for joining us. I'm Kelly Atkinson. I am the Division Director of the Planning Division, and I'm joined here by quite a few staff who you will be meeting later on in the presentation. They are with the Planning Division and other various county agencies, and they are welcome to introduce themselves when they get to their slide. So here's our agenda for today. We're just going to go through a quick overview of the project, provide a quick primer on what is planning, how is the policy plan used, the topics we're looking at with this first phase, an exercise in terms of what do you like about your neighborhood, and then we will open it up for questions and discussion. All right. So our project back in December of 2022, the board authorized a plan amendment to review and update the entire comprehensive plan policy plan. It hasn't been holistically updated since it was established in 1990, so this is an opportunity to do so. The goals of our policy plan update are to review, update, and streamline existing policy plan elements, add new policy plan elements as needed, particularly in the areas of equity and community health, and ensure the policy plan is in alignment with other countywide policies and documents such as the strategic plan, the One Fairfax policy, and other adopted policies and initiatives. The entire policy plan has been authorized for update. We have broken the project up into two phases, and in phase one, we're looking at the preface, land use, transportation, environment, parks and recreation, human services, as well as new chapters related to community health and equity. At the conclusion of phase one, we will start phase two, which is the remaining elements of the policy plan that are not part of phase one. Here's our timeline. So since the authorization, we have been working on some internal staff research. We have been completing a policy audit where we're comparing the policy plan to the strategic plan and other countywide documents. We have finalized our outreach plan with the Planning Commission. We've provided a summary of our progress to date to the Board of Supervisors. That is available on our project website if you want to take a look at that. And like I said at the beginning, we have been working on our initial phase one outreach here in June, where we're going out to the community, presenting the project, what the different elements include, and just trying, to get a feel from the community what things they really enjoy about their neighborhood in Fairfax County. Beginning in July and running through the end of December, we plan to do our second phase of outreach, which is more focused topic outreach and a variety of topics. So whether it's green building, EV charging, office to residential conversions, transportation. We're going to be having very specific topic outreach meetings through the remainder of the year that we would invite everyone to attend as well. And turn it on to the next slide. So what is planning? I think this is Mike Linsky.
Greetings, this is Mike from DPD. So the purpose of land use planning is to guide the decision-making process with regards to the built and natural environment of the county. Through our planning processes, county residents, business owners, community organizations, and the like help shape Fairfax County's future land use and open space pattern in order to maintain a high quality of life, ensure adequate utilities, infrastructure, and amenities. You can go to the next slide. And our primary resource for Fairfax County's long-range planning is our comprehensive plan. The Commonwealth of Virginia requires every locality to employ a comprehensive plan to guide future development in a coordinated and harmonious way. based on projected future needs and resources in order to promote health, safety, welfare, and prosperity for all its residents. And our comprehensive plan includes several distinct elements. There's the policy plan, which includes overall goals, objectives, policies, and guidelines that form the basis of our countywide planning. And that's organized into various topical elements, and that's the focus of this planning effort as well as this presentation. And there are additional plan elements that translate the countywide policies into an implementation framework. That's the county's transportation plan, which consists of various maps, transportation plan, map, trails plan, bike master plan, as well as a concept for future development, which translates countywide land use policies into a framework of land use classifications. And finally, there are 4 area plan volumes as well as a land use plan map, and those contain the most detailed land use recommendations for specific areas and specific properties within the county. The comprehensive plan envisions a future land use pattern, but doesn't directly control the timing of development, and that's largely determined by individual property owners. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm William Nance with the Department of Planning and Development. This slide gives an overview of what the policy plan is and how it's used. The policy plan contains board goals, policies, and objectives regarding land use, transportation, environment, and many other topics. The policy plan is used when considering plan amendments and provides a vision for future land use within the county. The policy plan is implemented through the review of development applications and guides staff when analyzing proposals. So this slide includes an example. We chose the Kingstown Consolidated Facility. This example shows how staff analyzed this zoning application against policy plan elements and associated objectives and policies to implement goals and policies from multiple agencies. Just a few highlighted features that were achieved through the implementation of certain policies include green building certification, EV charging, natural landscaping, and more.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Salem Bush. I also work for the Planning Division within the Department of Planning and Development, and I've been working on the preface for the entire policy plan. So it's also the introduction to the overall policy plan. It lays out the framework for the policy plan, and there's a few different sections of the policy of the preface that are important. You know, one part is talking about the history of Fairfax County and how land use planning has occurred over the years. This plan was adopted, the preface was originally adopted, the original policy plan back in 1990. So we're looking at updating the entire introduction and preface. Parts of it also go over metrics and goals and how the plan is being implemented, so that section will also be updated. But one thing that we have primarily been working on recently is updating the goals to the preface and policy plan. And so those goals, those lay out, again, the foundation for the objectives and policies that follow in the various elements that will be talked about, elements or chapters of the rest of the policy plan for specific sections. And so we'll be kind of looking at all of those to update that. And so next slide, please. So what I've done here is we've started working on those goals that I talked about and coming at it from a couple different angles. In today's preface and introduction, what you see with the goals is about 20 different goals that we currently have. Those were originally started in about 1973. And then they were refined in 1990. There was a committee that the Board of Supervisors appointed to come up with these goals. And then eventually 20 of them were adopted. And so you'll see those goals, they're kind of on the x-axis at the top of these, at the top of this Excel spreadsheet. So you see quality of life, land use, transportation, environmental protection, energy conservation, and so on. And so those goals are currently what's in the plan today. And then another thing that's happened in the last few years at Fairfax County is the Board of Supervisors adopted the countywide strategic plan. And so that plan went through a lot of community outreach, and it laid a new vision for some primary goals and objectives for the county to strive for. So it's a very visionary document. And so what you see on the left-hand side, more of the y-axis of this Excel sheet is those strategic plan goals. And so there's 10 of those strategic plan goals. And so that's kind of the new vision for the county. And so what I've done with this is showing how some of those existing goals that we have in the policy plan in the preface align with those strategic plan goals on the left-hand side. And so what we're working on now is kind of blending those together, taking what still works with the existing plan goals. They're still very relevant today, and working those into those 10 existing strategic plan goals and writing an updated narrative that is focused on land use and is modernized for the goals for Fairfax County today. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Stallhead. I'm the Equity Program Manager for the Department of Planning and Development. And so one of the new elements that we will be considering as part of the update to the policy plan is equity. And so this incorporating of equity into the policy plan is based on the county's adoption of the One Fairfax policy in 2017, which is a policy that committed the county to consider equity when developing or planning and implementing all policies, practices, and initiatives moving forward. In the One Fairfax policy, there are 17 areas of focus that help us think about moving forward with incorporating equity into the plan. They focus on affordable housing and transportation, and just the built environment and environmental issues also in general. Equity is also one of the key drivers of the county's strategic plan. And so the One Fairfax policy is operationalized in the strategic plan through this idea of access to opportunity. And that provides the basis of us incorporating the One Fairfax policy into the policy plan. All of the elements that we're updating along the way during this process are expected to incorporate equity into their thinking and into their policy work and into their discussions about their individual elements and incorporating this idea of access to opportunity. There are principles of equitable development, very generally speaking, such as inclusive community engagement or a focus on affordable housing that will become part of the discussion, especially as we get farther along into talking about kind of the topic specific engagement that we plan to do in the future. For example, something we've heard a lot about so far in the meetings that we've had is discussions about displacement and what that means and whether or not we have ways to talk about that in the policy plan moving forward. And so I look forward to hearing from all of you and talking more about equity and what that looks like in the policy plan as we move forward and incorporating access to opportunity into our work.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Anna Ricklin, and I'm here to talk about community health. I actually work for the health department. I have a background in planning and transportation planning, and really happy that the Board of Supervisors, when they authorized updating the policy plan, that they included the creation of a community health chapter and the integration of community health into the policy plan overall, along with equity. Similar to equity, community health covers all the different topics that we think about when it comes to land use planning. And it really is something that people can relate to because everyone has the experience of being healthy or having access to things in their community that help promote their health. And so you can see that there are some bolded words in this first paragraph where we think about the core components of health being that we need access to health care and human services that specifically and especially help support people who don't have other resources. We think about a variety of transportation options. We think about how we can engage in physical activity in our communities, that we don't have to drive somewhere, right, to get physical activity, and that we also have access to healthy food, that we're surrounded by clean air and clean water, and that we have a sense of belonging in our community. That also has a great deal to do with our health, and that is affected and constructed by the built environment. We know that there are benefits of having very intentional ways of planning health into our land use work. And we know that there are really good outcomes, whether it be community resiliency, having just an attractive community where people want to live, where people want to locate their businesses, and where they want their employees to live. There's a handful of statistics that we included here. There's many, many more statistics on health that relate to determinants in our built environment. But we do know that when it comes to physical activity, there are many neighborhoods across our county where people are not getting enough physical activity outside of their work. And we know that nearly 1 in 4 residents are obese, and that is often related to not enough physical activity and not healthy eating, and sometimes because of access to healthy foods. And the outcomes of that mean that some of our residents are living with diabetes, and that's a really tough diagnosis that many people live with. And we know that we can affect that by providing more opportunity for health in our communities and in our neighborhoods. So when we think about how that looks in the policy plan, which is a land use focused document and guidance for how we develop the county, we're thinking about it in these 5 buckets. These might not be the exact 5 buckets that we end up with in the policy, but this is kind of the areas that we're looking at for research and looking at peer communities and what might fit for Fairfax. So I mentioned healthcare and human services, that we're thinking about how our public provided services as well as community provided services have a place in our community. Active living, where residents are able, as I mentioned, to be physically active no matter what their ability is, where they live, or their income level. Food systems is really important to be thinking about access to food, not just can people get to a food pantry or can people get to a grocery store, but really thinking about it in a systems way where we're thinking about food production and distribution of healthy, nutritious food for everybody. Climate change is upon us, and climate health, when we're talking about things like the heat island effect and the impact of significant storms on our communities, that we're thinking about green infrastructure and how healthy buildings and healthy sites, as someone pointed out in one of our engagement conversations previously, how are they promoting a healthier community? So that connects back to the natural environment and the wider environment of where we live. And then finally, social connection, where we think about civic engagement, where we think about communities that are supportive and connected to one another, where residents are empowered, and where people can live independently as much as possible. And so that's a quick synopsis of what we're thinking about with community health, and I really am interested in what you're thinking.
Good afternoon. I'm Katrina Knutson with the Department of Planning and Development in the Planning Division. And let me just pull up really quick. Sorry, I had my notes here. What are right now the land use policies in the current policy plan? So the county's land use policies aim to maintain a high quality of life for residents, support balanced development, ensure access to public services and transportation, and promote environmental sustainability. The land use section of the policy plan outlines long-term strategies for growth while enhancing existing communities. The current policy plan is kind of outlined in kind of broad topics such as land use pattern, land use intensities, land use compatibility, for example, and that's how it's currently organized. So, we'll be looking at that. And we're also looking at the appendices kind of over the years as land use topics have been identified or there's a need for a policy regarding land use. There have been appendices added to the policy plan. So for example, transit-oriented development, we have guidelines for that. We have guidelines for continuing care facilities. And those are just some two examples of what has been added over the years to the land use section of the policy plan. So, but as we move forward, what we're identifying are some of the trends that we are seeing. Some of those trends are, the need for more residential development to provide places to live for people moving into Fairfax County, as well as the changing demand for office use and for retail uses, just to name a few. And so those are some of the areas that we're going to be doing some additional research for, and for possible inclusion into the land use section of the policy plan. And we're going to be going out to the communities and listening to you today to kind of try to identify some of those trends that you're seeing out there in your community for further research and possible inclusion into the land use section of the policy plan. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Carly Aubrey. I'm Senior Environmental Planner with DPD and co-lead with Corrine Bebek for the environment element. The current policies in the environment element are grouped into three broad categories: environmental pollution, environmental hazards, and environmental resources. Objectives are related to air, water, noise, lighting, problem soils, tree cover, conservation easements, and green building. It's important to recognize that the environment includes people and everything that is around us. It encompasses all parts of the county, including the built environment. And those areas provide a diversity of habitats from stream corridors to urban tree canopies. The built environment is a significant part of people's exposure to nature. These landscapes have the capacity to protect and regenerate natural systems and enhance the ecosystem services that they provide. Healthy ecosystems perform many functions. Their economic value is significant as they buffer us from extreme events and protect people's investments. Go to the next slide, please. So given these points, here are some of the considerations that we're looking at for the policy plan update, and I'll just highlight a few of them. The importance of resiliency, or the ability to adapt to a stressor. And resiliency considerations can include extreme heat and flooding. The preservation, enhancement, and restoration of ecological features and natural vegetation communities. Resource connections, both across the county and the region. The linkages between human health, environmental health, and economic health. Biodiversity, which to be effective would consider all stages of life. Equity, which would ensure that all people have access to and benefit from healthy environments. And the role that each site has in the creation of a healthy environment, regardless of the scale, use, or density, through a sustainable site design approach. So that's my comments for today. But you can see there's much more considerations.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Randall Farron, and I manage the park planning branch at the Fairfax County Park Authority. So the Parks and Recreation element of the policy plan provides policy guidance for the development, location, and stewardship of public open spaces and recreational facilities throughout the county. Currently, the principles and policies in the plan relate to several broad themes. Stewardship of natural and cultural resources, making sure that our parks and recreation facilities are of the quality and quantity to serve the county's growing population, minimizing and mitigating impacts of new development on parkland, and aligning the location and types of facilities with the specific needs of the communities that they serve. And as shown on this slide, while the Park Authority is the primary provider of parks and recreation facilities in the county, the plan also recognizes that several jurisdictions, local, state, and federal public agencies, nonprofits, and others are involved and really critical to the delivery and programming of these facilities throughout the county. Next slide, please. So broadly speaking, our update is aiming to align the policy plan with related plans and initiatives that have been completed or initiated since the plan was last updated. These initiatives relate to many themes, including the provision and location of parks, our level of service standards, and the management and protection of cultural and natural resources. Much of the update to the Parks and Recreation element in this first phase is going to focus on incorporating the goals and objectives of the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Access Strategy, or the PROSA strategy, which our Park Authority Board adopted last September. PROSA is a data-driven tool that will help us identify and prioritize areas for park investments and improvements, kind of broadly aiming to improve walkable access to parks by prioritizing projects that increase the 10-minute walk access to county parks for county residents, increase residents' access to a wider range and better balance of recreational experiences, and enhance habitat connectivity among existing and future parks. So we also view all of these goals through an equity lens, kind of relating back to the One Fairfax discussion earlier in the presentation, and look to prioritize projects in communities that are underserved in terms of parks and recreation. So PROSA calls for the use of data that looks at population density, socioeconomics, and racial diversity to help ensure that we're delivering our park projects and improvements to the areas that need them most. And this update is really aiming to revise our current policies and add new policy guidance to help implement these core principles. So thank you all for joining us, and looking forward to your feedback and questions today.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob Pecora. I'm a planner with the Transportation Department, and my apologies, my camera is not working today, so I would be on camera. So the transportation system in Fairfax County, we're looking to serve the community by providing a multimodal network that promotes mobility, safety, and quality of life for residents. Through the planning, coordinating, funding, and creating and implementing this system, we can achieve it with coinciding with the community values of the residents we are trying to serve within the county. The policies provide a structure for us to work with the continuing development of the transportation system. We know the county is growing in population and employment, so we're also looking to take advantage or address the changing characteristics of the transportation system and the needs of the community. We will be working with a complete streets guide. The policy plan will help guide us towards recommendations and goals that we can begin working on a future complete streets guide. Next, please. So some of the key considerations and existing themes that we have is we're looking at how residents, businesses, visitors, and goods move throughout the county efficiently, affordably, and safely. We're looking to design or have well-designed and maintained networks of roads, sidewalks, trails, and transit options, but also looking at the policies that are updated to account for all the development increases in travel demand. Some of the systems that we're looking for, there are key features, providing good choices for getting around, balancing efficiency for all modes. We mentioned this a lot, but reducing single occupant vehicle use, but we're also looking to increase public transportation, active transportation, and then provide improvements that are cost effective, provide a quality of quality facilities and services. And as I mentioned before, include new county plans and policies and strategies that were mentioned earlier. So Safe Streets for All, the active Fairfax plan that are coming up, One Fairfax and the strategic plan. And we're also looking to keep looking for new funding opportunities so we can help build these facilities and pet and bike facilities, transit systems and such. So we look forward to hearing from you for any comments that will help guide us in this work. And as everyone else, will be available for answering questions after this presentation. Thank you.
All right, so if everyone could just post what is your favorite part about your neighborhood in the chat. And if someone could just give me a heads up when we're ready and move to the next slide, I'd appreciate it. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next slide because I see a lot of good things in the chat, so I want to make sure that we have time for questions, which is questions and discussion. So here we go. All right. All right, Elaine A., I see that you have your hand raised. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Trying to figure out what button to push. Yeah, I have a couple comments, and then I have some real questions about this process to make sure I understand what's happening. First is that there is a current comprehensive plan in place, and while I think this is a great concept, if we stuck with it, what I've seen, I'm a member of one of the land use committees, is that every time a development comes along, they just say, let's make a change to the comprehensive plan, and then boom, everything happens differently than what was originally laid out. So I don't even understand why we need to do this process in a way, because I don't think it's ever adhered to. And then the next thing I would like to ask is, I'm trying to understand, if I caught this right from your presentation, you guys are going to have a number of meetings where you're going to be asking for public input on specific areas for development into the wording then? And at some point in the future, this new wording will come out, and do we have a chance, like not a week or less, to actually read this new document before public comment is due?
Yeah, thanks so much for your question. So in regards to your first question, so I think what you might be thinking of there is more of our site-specific plan amendments. So when someone is proposing to change the comprehensive plan recommendation for a particular site or an area, though that information is contained in our area plans, which is part of our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan it includes the area plans as well as the policy plan. And so the policy plan is the one that we're updating with this process. The policy plan is more of those overarching goals and objectives guiding how kind of the vision for development in the county, and the area plans get into more specific recommendations for individual parcels or areas of the county. And so the policy plan does inform the area plans. So that's kind of the distinction between the two, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that helps.
Okay, great. Yeah, and so in terms of input, yes, so we are going to be working to identify certain topics that we need additional feedback from the community on. And so what we've committed to do after each phase of outreach, so this is phase 1 right now, and then the following phase is phase 2, is we're going to be preparing a document that captures all the feedback that we received from the community. And then so we'll post that. And then when we start to get to the point of developing new policy guidance, we're going to be very transparent in terms of what feedback was used to inform new policy. So it will be very clear, what we included, what we didn't include, and why. We plan to roll out information kind of on a rolling basis. And so we realize that it is a big document and people need time to kind of digest it. We've heard the same from the Board of Supervisors. So we will be rolling that out, opportunity for feedback. It'll be very clear what we changed, what we added, and you definitely will have more than a week to look at it.
Okay, and will all this get sent, or are we going like in an email if you're signed up for this thing, or is it something you're going to have to rethink to go check all the time? Because like even these meetings, I knew they were coming, but calendars went by and somebody mentioned how they'd been to a in-person one just the other night, and I'm like, oh my gosh, are we there already? Because I didn't get any kind of notification.
Yeah, so we would encourage you to sign up through the project website for information, for updates. But we will be, anytime we post something new to our webpage, we're happy to send out a communication, say, hey, we posted this, this particular paper is here to review, or this topic is here to review. So we're happy to kind of communicate it that way as well. But most of the documents, all of the documents will be on our website.
Yeah, but it's a matter of understanding that there's something there to go left, because I had that problem with the data center changes, and then the public meeting or the supervisors meeting that took place, and it was like, okay, they took all this input from us, but I don't know if that changed anything in the recommendation or what it was that went to the supervisors. I would just suggest that since there are a number of land use committees across this county, at a minimum, since this is like our bread and butter, that you should just send a notice out to all those committees and let them know, because their chairman or however they function can pass it on, that this new thing is up here to be looked at. And, yes, and when you talk about how this policy guides things and how it plays out in particulars, I'll just say, listening to the thing about the parks and recs, we recently had a controversy, and it's still ongoing, about a change in the comprehensive plan use of an area here in our district in Franconia. And we had a big discussion about parks and recs, and the answer back was, you guys don't need any more stinking parks because you've got plenty of them within a couple of miles, all of which is like a half hour to an hour bus ride, walk, or you're driving in your car. And yet I just heard a discussion about how things are supposed to be a 10-minute walk away. So even though these policies are there, even though these plans are there, they're just ignored when the developers come along and want to build something else. Just my comment.
Yep. No, thank you for your feedback. Appreciate that. I've been capturing your comments. Whitney, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yes, for the record, I've never met Elaine. Don't have any idea what A stands for, but I have to echo here in Mason District, the whole concept, the comp plan becomes kind of a bit of a joke when looked at everywhere from, like, I'm a civic association leader, but I'm also head of a small, 501c3 Friends of Homes Run. And it is almost a joke how often it gets waived. And the data centers are an example of that. And I know that's bigger than any one of us, and then including the Board of Supervisors, and I don't envy their position. But the point is, I personally think there should be some overarching, and forgive me if there already is, but it doesn't seem that way, some overarching policy, kind of like guiding lights. So the one that I would care most about personally is that all land use decisions are environmental ones. And that's not to say that you can't have land use, obviously, But for example, if there was a lens that looked at environmental feasibility / impact earlier in the land use process, then I think a lot of bad decisions would be avoided. And so, for example, it can be a super duper great thing if you're redeveloping an old urban area and you're improving on the stormwater development, but often what will happen in a by right is that never happens because it's a by right. So then the opportunity is lost. So if you're going to have highfalutin goals that are environmental in terms of biodiversity, connecting people with their nature, heat islands, then you're going to have more teeth in that. Then that needs to be risen high, and it's something that developers should not be afraid of, because I think, like I just said, there are opportunities through development to do a lot of good when it comes to the environment. But I'm not seeing that in in the actionable level in a lot of cases. Even when the county is the owner and the operator of all the land involved, like happened with Justice Park, which I, helped to fight to save, what turned out with a lot of questions of why is the county making this decision and not getting any answers, turned into us being blamed for what did happen there. And my whole point of mentioning that is there should be a connection with the schools such that the schools are equally on board with the environmental mission. So, for example, in the case of Justice High School, why the heck did they not anticipate that there would be a concern by the neighbors that if they were to take the parking, take the part of the park and turn it into a parking lot? That was an opportunity missed. If they had gone upwards or had like some other way of constructing that project from the get-go that accommodated parking without having to remove teacher parking, I think that would have been so good for both the school and the neighborhood. So that's just an example of how it actually plays out in the real world. So those are my major thoughts.
Great, thank you for your comments. Cindy?
Hello. Yes, here we go. I can turn on my mic and my camera. I have two comments. One, I was delighted to see that we've added community health to the list as a focus, because with an environmental background, obviously community health is based on good environmental health, and there's a lot of interleaving of that, and I'm excited to see that. I did have a question and wondered if we might just go back, or at least visually remember the slide that had the XY table looking at the strategic plan and the comprehensive plan. I did a lot of community meetings during the strategic plan process, and the environmental issues were very much a low priority, and that shows on that schematic. And what I wanted to know was where it said in that chart where it says align, and on the left are where the strategic plan goals, and I think across the top were the comprehensive plan goals. What is going to happen with all of the blank spaces? Who is going to align with what? I think it's important. The strategic plan, I understand from the county executive, words out of his mouth was that is going to guide the budgetary process from here on out. And with a complete lack of environmental protection focus or anyway, I think I'd like to know, where is the push? Are all of these expected to be all green and aligned? Or
sure, I can answer that, Cindy.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, so this is really, so where you see blank spaces, it's not to say that there isn't some alignment. It's more to show like these are really the places where there's some obvious like alignment, where some of this stuff from the overall policy plan goals that exist today fit within the strategic plan goals. I know I've talked to Anna about this. She's been working the community health goals, and so I think we acknowledge that there is a lot in here where community health aligns with some of the other strategic plan goals, but it's more of a way to kind of show that the existing goals within the comprehensive plan are still valid they're still important, even though they were written, back in 1990. So, but yes, I think but to answer kind of a bigger question I think you're asking about is we all, as we're kind of working on a lot of these policy plan elements and chapters together, because we see a lot of synergy between them. And we have a lot of different representatives from different agencies and different experts within the county kind of working on all these goals to make sure that we do align some of these, because there's a lot of cross references in referencing of these different elements and goals. And so we just want to make sure they're not looked at in a silo, that they are thought about together.
Good, because I think there are huge gaps here. So you don't, if you spend all your energy and get a lot of community input on environmental issues and biodiversity and ecological corridors and economic benefits of improved tree canopy, I mean, whatever aspect you come at that, if it isn't going to be ever put into the strategic plan, it will never be a budget priority. So it'll be great to spend this time doing that and focusing on the things that we think the community thinks are important. But unless it shows up here as influencing the strategic plan, I think we're stuck. And so just take that as a comment. Then I had another comment in the chat, or another question in the chat. It's very specific. There are a whole lot of small plans and that the board has approved. One that I'm specifically interested in is the Tree Action Plan of 2019, originally written in 2008. And it's my understanding that it is currently a part of the policy area or the plan area of my comprehensive plan. But are these older small plans, I don't mean small in impact, but just they're short and sweet, are they going to be renewed and refreshed and included in this process of the overall goal here? Just saying.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, so I was trying to pull up our list of all the documents we used. So the Tree Action Plan, the 2019 update, we did review that as part of our internal policy audit, just to kind of see if there was anything in there that could be used to inform the policy plan. So there was almost, probably 15, 20 documents that we looked at, but that was definitely one of the ones that we looked at.
So should the Tree Commission, which I represent, should the Tree Commission reach out to you, Kelly, to ask what was your takeaway? We did not hear anything about it.
So this was an internal exercise where we wanted to really understand, where the policy was currently really strong and where it needed to be updated to be aligned with all of these documents that the board has adopted over the years, because they do have some really great information. So Carly Aubrey is our environment lead, and so you are welcome to, or co-lead, so you're welcome to reach out to her.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
I wrote your name down, Carly, when you were talking of my slides. Thank you very much.
And I'm pretty sure the Tree Commission is on our list for outreach for the space too. So you'll be seeing more of us.
But I have a step ahead because we have a meeting this week. I thought it would be good to report on.
No, please share and please invite others to come to our other meetings the rest of the month. I think
very good.
Sarah posted them in the chat. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Kelly.
Sure. All right. I don't see any other hands raised, but if someone wants to ask a question, feel free to unmute. And I'll look through the chat real quick to see if there's anything that hasn't been answered yet.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. And we're just being on the telephone. I have a couple of questions about how you will deal with certain issues which are really important to us or people who are interested in land use. And the first one is conversions of office to residential, and the second one has to do with data centers. And I noted in the staff report on data centers that a number of items that could not be dealt with through the recent or the current ongoing zoning ordinance amendment will be picked up in your process.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, we've done some internal research on the first topic, office to residential conversions. We're working with a consultant who is finalizing a white paper for us that we hope to get published later this summer. And so that'll be posted to our project website, and like the other documents, we're happy to send out notification when that is posted. And so that is a document that's looking more at the trends with office to residential conversions and different criteria that we can consider when we're getting this type of request. Our policy plan already has standards in there for office conversions. The policy's been implemented and used quite a few times, but it's also, it's kind of extending larger to when we have pressure to replan office, near metro stations to other uses. And so it's going to be giving us some criteria there that we can consider with this policy plan amendment. And then, yes, you're correct with the data centers. Yes, we're aware that there are things that will need to be looked at as part of this process, and that is on the list as part of the environment element. So again, Carly has all the good topics. That'll be something that they will be looking at.
Thanks very much. That's very helpful.
Yep, no problem. I do see a question in here about, and I don't, forgive me if it's been answered already, about how the policy plan can handle issues and trends that haven't been emerged yet. I think that's a really great question. I think that's kind of the good thing about our policy plan over the years is that it is very high level, and it has been very forward thinking in terms of, in terms of sustainability, land use patterns. And so because it is very high level and vague in general, we've been able to use it to adapt as the times have changed. One of the policies I like to kind of talk about is electric vehicle charging. That wasn't a thing really when the policy plan was first adopted. And so as technology has changed over time, we've been able to ask the development community to increase their commitments with electric vehicle charging. So that's one of the policies that I like to kind of highlight to show how, it is visionary, it is very high level, and it allows us to be very responsive to emerging trends. All right, I don't see any other questions in the chat unless I've missed one that hasn't been answered already.
I just have a question. It's just Whitney again talking about environment because it's my thing. I'm just curious how in your perspective, how do other jurisdictions around the country deal with the environment when it comes to its ecological services? Like how do you account for that in a big policy plan? And try to encapsulate it such that it is represented. By ecological services, that's, the streams have biological functioning that serves us well when it leads to clean water, or trees and their shade and their stormwater management services, or soil and its value for sequestration or whatever.
This is Carly. We are looking at other comprehensive plans, both our neighbors and then elsewhere, to see how they are handling, how they address those. Some do better than others. But that's something that it is becoming more and more of a focus for things, especially with efforts like Resilient Fairfax, CCAP. It is becoming more commonplace to look at the environment as a whole and our role in it and our impacts on it. So in addition to the work that the county has already done, we are looking at other comp plans to see what kind of good policies that other places have done and what's been effective.
That's good, because I think sometimes these are outside the equation sometimes, and yet there is a cost to all of us. Some of those ecological services keep getting diminished inadvertently by small piecemeal decisions that add up over time to the loss of an ecological service. And as somebody who's there learning about watersheds, always kind of advocating for them, I can see it like so obviously, but I don't think the average person does. So I'm just curious how you would address that. And I'm glad to at least be able to say that for the record, that it should be a priority.
Yep, agreed.
All right, are there any other questions for the team? All right, well, if not, thank you so much for spending your lunch hour with us. I hope you got some good information. Please feel free to check out our project website, sign up for updates, and we have 2 more upcoming opportunities in the space, one about outreach. So we encourage you to share those with your friends and other groups that you're a part of. Great, and thanks so much to the team as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.